Heard they're building concentration camps from the rate hike off our postage stamps to protect and defend their great democracy. Though my vote in the last election didn't quite match the same projection, maybe those beautiful talking heads on my TV. And when I called them to complain, and I asked them to explain, they just said that it proves that you're not in the groove of the new majority. Yeah, sure. Well, just between you and me, can't you feel the conspiracy? Can't you sense the hypocrisy, as they call it democracy? Well, it's a threat to your sanity, and not to mention your liberty. And it's all an evil, filthy, rotten conspiracy. Now they've got microwaves and laser beams and rays to look inside your dreams, and satellites that can see your DVDs.
Our collective rights and not individual rights, and maybe we can get things straightened out. I mean, we can straighten this out, can't we? Yeah. All right. Okay, coming up next, we've got the founder of the E Pluribus Union. He's with the Ohio Militia, featured articles with the Wall Street Journal, the Columbus Dispatch. He does an intelligence report on shortwave 5.065. Been on Phil Donahue, and he's here today, Mr. JJ from the Ohio Militia. Thank you.
Can you guys hear me out back? Way back there? Good. Okay. I'd like to thank the people of Michigan for having me here. The mayor himself, Dan Parker, of the Michigan Militia, and all of you. I know I kind of covered it both in one topic there. Now, the reason I was called here, I was asked to talk about things such as how to recruit minorities into your militia units, how to do communications, how to do intelligence and things like that. But unfortunately, in the last few weeks, Murphy's Law has taken effect in Ohio, okay? And whatever can go wrong will go wrong. You may have heard or may not have heard for about the last month and a half of all kind of crazy raids that were supposed to take place across the country on May 25th. They were going to go and grab militia leaders. They were going to go and grab militia people. They were going to concentrate in 4 states, Montana, Michigan, Florida, and Texas, which told me, my intelligence analyst said, basically, that's one of 46 states to choose from. Okay? Hold it, I want to make sure I do that. So anyway, what ended up happening was there was one ATF raid that day, and it was in my town. Murphy's Law takes full effect. Well, I'm going to report on this a little bit, and I'm going to start by, it goes back to March 24th at about 1600 hours. That's 4 p.m. for you civilians. Okay. From my job, I received a page which had a priority page on it. I called home, and they said, we have some gentlemen in Licking County who are on alert. You need to get home as soon as possible. I immediately got home. It took about 15 minutes to get there. Now, folks, there's going to be questions on this later. So pay close attention. We will be asking questions later. And when I got home, we had called our friends in the county. Licking County is about 30 miles east of Columbus. And they reported that they saw 2 plain vehicles with gentlemen wearing black uniforms in them, having material which may look like firearms. At 4 o'clock, they were reported to be in the vehicle sitting there, 2 squads, units of 6 apiece. And 15 minutes later, when they looked, they had noticed that these gentlemen were no longer there. So they panicked, you could say, and they notified all their other units. They were about 2 miles from a certain militia leader's home. They put all their units, they notified all their units, and they thought the situation may get out of hand. They had called the sheriff's department. They could get no confirmation on what was going on. None of their law enforcement contacts could tell them anything. So we decided what our standard protocol is when we have a situation in a given county like that, we notify the counties surrounding that one. So that is what we did. When we notify counties or other units in other areas what to do, what people will begin doing is getting on scanners. If you folks don't know what scanners are, they're these things that Basically, you can scan and monitor any frequency that's out there within range. You can even monitor government frequencies, and like if you're having a meeting like this, you can monitor frequencies of, like, let's say you got some government operative in here, for instance, okay, and he's reporting what's going on inside this meeting by just having a microphone on. Well, you can key up on that frequency and, like, be able to tell who he is and take it from there. Am I okay here? Oops. Thank you.
Bring this up for you.
Thank you very much. Whoa.
Short people.
Short, huh? Okay. Continuing on. About scanners. Let me talk about scanners for a minute. A good scanner can cost you, starting at around $400. It would be helpful for a lot of units to grab scanners. Now, we've talked about this before in Ohio, and people says, well, I don't know, those things are kind of expensive, and I don't know if we really can afford to appropriate such funds for such electronic equipment. And I look at them and say, you know, if I go to a gun show, or some of these militia people go to a gun show, and you saw a .50 caliber Barrett sniper rifle for $500, you would melt that credit card to buy it. Okay? So just kind of think about your priorities here. Okay? Communications and intelligence is just as important as anything else. So anyway, we were listening to what was going on at about 1700 hours. That's 5 p.m. Same day. We then monitored on military frequencies civilian surveillance going on. The quote came out as this: I seem to have lost our suspect in traffic. He went to the local carryout and made a phone call, and from there we lost him. That was on a military channel. Now, the people who received this information got confused and thought that was about the situation over in Licking County. City of Newark was the county seat. That's the major city over there. And so we went on. People began preparing for what might possibly be a hostile action. Now, usually we would say, okay, you're on alert, so what? But being that it was the day it was, and we knew that there was a lot of ATF activity going on in that area and all around Ohio, we were monitoring the situation closely. We then contacted a friend who contacted us and says, listen to this frequency right here. It's 165.290. And we were noticing that there was ATF activity going on in Columbus, Ohio. And they were working with the police. From this scanner, we picked up exactly where their command post was. Once we realized what was going on and what part of town that it was, this was after, of course, me putting it around in my chamber, we then began to call our contacts on the north end of Columbus, Ohio, and ask them what was going on, what was the deal, because the police station and the sheriff's department's lines were busy. It hit the 11 o'clock news. The raid actually started at about 5 p.m., in which units of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, the U.S. Marshal Service, the Ohio State Police, the County Sheriff's Department, and the local Columbus Police Department decided to rid ourselves of a gang known as the Short North Posse. Now, I live in the inner city, and I know of what we call the Boys in the Hood, which is basically what these were. This is one gang that I'd never heard of. But they decided they were going to take these guys in, and it was this wonderful, huge, successful drug bust. It was the largest and most successful raid in Columbus history. We had 46 indictments, and if you change the channels from one to the other, we've arrested 34, we've arrested 24, we've arrested 30, we've arrested 38. They couldn't make up their mind. But they had arrested a number of people. How did the raids take place? Well, from their field command post, which was located at the state fairgrounds, not State University Fairgrounds. For those of you who have ever been in or through Columbus, Ohio, it is just to the west of Interstate 71 and just to the east of the Ohio State University. It's where they have the hog shows every year. Anyway, from the state police building, they sent out groups of 40-man units. They did not cordon off the area. There were some main access roads which were open. But basically, anybody who was out there was stopped. You were put on the ground, your ID was taken, and if you weren't the person they were looking for, they generally let you go. From the television film footage, you did see the same kind of gentlemen you saw at Waco. Black suits, Kevlar helmets, bulletproof vests. We did see tactical shotguns, we did see HKs, we did see badges this time, and the tape wasn't covering them. But they did have on their ski masks so they couldn't be identified. From all reports, the raid was legitimate. The next report we got, as these gentlemen were thrown into the paddy wagon and taken over to the state fairgrounds, they were then airlifted via helicopters over to the State Peace Officer Authority, which is in Madison, Ohio. This is somewhat about 25 miles southwest of Columbus. It is the headquarters for the State Police Authority. It is the headquarters for the Bureau of Criminal Identification and Investigation. They were taken there, and the next morning they appeared in federal court for arraignment. They are still looking for 9 at this time. What is important about this is when people heard about it, as well, these guys are just hoods, these guys are thugs. It's legit. Tomorrow, this could be your community. They had warrants, yeah, they had some warrants of this wonderful drug bust and all these people that we can only confirm 34 that were arrested. It was drug bust, federal firearms violations, and money laundering. Now, I am not a racist, and I have been called a white supremacist before, but I'm going to say something that may offend some people. I know of the area. It is not the upper class part of Columbus, Ohio. And when I saw money laundering, a flag went up in my head because a lot of these gentlemen can't give change for $1, let alone launder any money. Okay? These guys are making thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, but yet had bus tokens. Okay? Kind of raise the flag up there. Anyway, that is the way it went. Now, I wish I could have more information for you. But as you remember, when I first started, what were we doing? We were watching what was going on out east. And as Mark says, as you were watching what this hand is doing, look out, wham. The other hand will hit you. They could have hit my house and I would have never been able to tell anybody because we were busy calling numbers out east. Something to remember. Now, we also got to report, well, they had hit the short north area, which is the area they did hit, and they also hit the hilltop area. And they couldn't have hit the hilltop area. I live in the hilltop area. Well, they hit the hilltop area. Now, this leads me into my next thing, because after the word got out on the internet and via phone calls and via this wonderful Patriot network that we've all created, guess how many phone calls came to my house after word got out that this raid took place? It stopped ringing just before I left to come here today. Okay? That's when they stopped ringing. When we got on the shortwave and says, folks, we're here. Everybody's accounted for. Were these militia people by law? Yes. Associated with us? No. I have a feeling they will be soon. But what this leads to is how the reports came back to us. 50 militia people were rounded up in Columbus, Ohio. I was rounded up in Columbus, Ohio. I answered the phone and somebody actually told me that J.J. Johnson and all of his guys were rounded up in Columbus, Ohio. Now, this is the way you can do this. Give this man a statement right here, and he goes to this person, and he goes to this person right here, and by the time he gets back there, it's something else. Now, we put in our last newsletter, this went out on our fax network, that this kind of activity and this kind of information is going to get patriots killed if it does not stop. I also wrote that it has become apparent to me that some of these patriots or militia units need a crash course on how to gather information or disseminate information and intelligence. Now, one of your military terms that you may hear of is called a salute report. That's S-A-L-U-T-E. The S stands for the size of the activity. The A stands for the activity that is going on. The L stands for the location, the exact location of whatever activity is going on. The U stands for the unit identification. That's a patch. If it's a convoy of vehicles or aircraft, it's an identification number, a license plate number. The T is the time, as close as possible to what is going on out there. And the E is the equipment being used. I will say this publicly. If you are in a militia unit and your commanding officer has not explained this to you, fire him now. There is no reason he should not explain this to you. This is the kind of information we need. Other kind of information you want to consider when you are gathering certain kinds of information. Ask yourself, is this really important? Might there be a legitimate reason for some kind of activity taking place? And the third one and most important one, can I keep this information compartmentalized within my unit or my own units without waking up the entire planet? Yes, this happened. Let me tell you about Florida. Okay, the reports from Florida, the recent things going around the nation, but especially from Florida, is low-flying C-130s. For those of you who don't know what a C-130 is, that's Detroit with wings, okay? That's how big the sucker is. Now, we're getting reports of low-flying C-130s. You call somebody else in the same area and who can't confirm it. Well, have any of your other neighbors seen it? No. They must have been sleeping. Folks, if a C-130 is flying over your house, you will wake up everybody. Okay, he says, well, a couple of dishes fell off the walls. No, windows should be breaking. C-130s don't want to fly low. They need a lot of air to stay up there. But anyway, this was the report. This one came out of Florida. This will get you going. Now, these gentlemen say they saw this with their own eyes at about 1 p.m. Some C-130s had the Missouri National Guard on the side of them, had landed in Ocala, Florida. Ooh. Okay, they had trucks and buses to unload the men and material. Oh no. Everybody's watching. Civilian patrols are out there. This guy gets on the internet and puts Florida, Georgia, and half of Alabama on alert. It's going down tonight. Yes, this was March 25th. It's going down tonight. We're going to get stomped on. We're going to get walked over. They're going to come and use their non-lethal weapons. They're going to gas us all. And we're all going to get wasted, I suggest. Everybody lock and load. So this is what I said. We called down there personally. Are you sure that their intentions are militia units? Well, we saw guys in a restaurant wearing black, eating on Highway 200. Are you sure? Do you realize what you just did? We understand. We may need all the help we can get. Well, as Murphy's Law would have it, what could go wrong did go wrong. My wife, the editor of our newsletter, got the information off the internet and reported it, but we accidentally put the wrong name on where we got the information from. This was a great help because this also went around the network, and this gentleman called us back. And he says, in so many terms, what in the hell do you think you're doing? He says, well, this is what we got. We didn't talk to you? He says, no, you talked to somebody else. He says, I'm merely a pro-gun advocate. I am not part of these crazy militia nuts out here. Let me explain to you what really happened. Well, the summer training was to begin from Fort Polk, Louisiana. And these gentlemen were being dropped off in Ocala, Florida. And it was announced on television 2 days prior. There's no emergency here. He says, the other reason I'm calling you because I want to know what in the world are you sending Ohio militiamen down here for? What do you mean, Ohio militiamen? Well, we got a call from one of your guys in Ohio saying, where do you want your troops? No one is coming, we can assure you. Well, that's pretty good. Then I got another phone call saying, is it true I heard you guys from Ohio are coming down here? No, we are not coming down there. Well, that's good because I just wanted to let you know I have real good contacts with the Florida State Highway Patrol and they're on alert now on the border. You kind of see how the information highway works, people? It's a double-edged sword out there. This is why this information needs to be within your unit, within your county, or for Pete's sake, within your state. Compartmentalize it until hostilities have taken place or you've decided to take some action that needs assistance. Okay? This is very important. I know a lot of it's funny because it's silly. These are the kind of phone calls we get. You're going to find Mr. McLam, Mr. Cornkey, myself, we get phone calls about intelligence gathering and we throw 80% of them away because a lot of them just cannot be confirmed. We also ask that if anybody out there on the computer networks or on the fax networks initializes a report, either put your name on it or don't send it out. Because if it's wrong, what do you do? Well, I got it from an anonymous source on the internet. If we put out a report, we put our name on it. Period. If we screw up, guess what we do? Listen to this, folks. We admit it. Okay? And then we move forward and continue what we're doing. If we make a story in error, correct the story as soon as possible. Because I know something about patriots. If you're doing something wrong, you'll be the last person to know about it. Everybody else will talk about you, and don't say, it'll come back to you as, hey, I don't want to talk to you on the phone about this, and you didn't hear this from me, but, you know, so-and-so said that you're an undercover BATF agent. Or so-and-so said, you're really a state-sponsored terrorist working for the UN. Or you're an agent provocateur. Or you just don't know what the heck you're doing. Oh, boy, this is life, folks. This is everyday life in this movement. It's going to get like this a lot. I believe that all these red alerts, oh, gee, if I hear one more red alert out there, I'm going to puke. Okay? Every state's got them. We don't know. Guys are in the intelligence gathering mode out here, and then they gather this much information, and they consider themselves on red alert. You want to know when you're on red alert? When suddenly your dog starts barking because there's these guys in black suits right on your sidewalk. You're on red alert. Okay? When hostilities are about to take place, I do communications and I gather intelligence in Ohio. Let me give you some insight on what's going to happen if they decide to come kick your door in. Write this down. There'll be a test on this later. You will not make a phone call. I repeat, you will not make a phone call. Hi, this is Paul Revere. I just wanted to let you know that there are guys with black suits and Kevlar helmets carrying HKs and tactical shotguns in my house right now. Okay? They have a gun to my daughter's head, and they demand to know where the list of names are and where do I have my guns. Could you guys get over here and shoot these guys as soon as possible? I'm going to put it to you in ghetto terms. It ain't happening. All right? How to counter these actions? First of all, if you're going to be a patriot, a Minuteman, or I can't say Minuteman, I have to say half-hour woman, is it now? If you're going to be a half-hour woman or a Minuteman, okay. What you need to do is, first of all, this is very serious, prepare to die. Wild concept, isn't it? Yeah, see, this is a thing where you're going to be trying to save your country and you're doing this for your future generations, and you may very well die in this. It's very, a concept people can't quite understand. If they've suddenly surrounded your house, you're probably gone, especially if you're a loudmouth like me. They don't want to shut you up anyway, okay? You're gone. What we advocated was to have a buddy system in which somebody who is in view of your house can make the appropriate phone call, give out the proper code sequence, and activities can take place to counter the threat. All right. Now people sit here and say, well, how do you counter these guys' threat without breaking the law? Oh, there are ways to do these things. We're going to talk about some of them today. In order to do this, you must first assess the situation. Let's keep something in mind. These raids that are taking place are becoming more frequent. They're getting good at it. In fact, one of our law enforcement contacts in Columbus, Ohio told me, I said, what was this raid all about? And he told me it was merely practice. That's what it was. Pick on the easy targets. Pick on those guys who don't come in rooms like these and know what's going on. Okay? They are not going to hit a group like this as a group. Because I know some of you guys. Okay? And I know what's in some of your basements and backyards. And trust me, what I do for a living, I'm a utility worker. I know police officers. The number one job in a dangerous business such as ours is to come home the same way you left. That is the number one mission. Keep that in mind. The number two mission of the law enforcement officers, or the ATF, or the U.S. Marshals, or the multi-jurisdictional task force, whatever you want to call it, is to have total control of the situation. Whether they cordon off the neighborhood or just your house, they have to have total control of the situation. This is where the Patriots come in. Your mission is to see to it that they do not have control over the situation. Okay? If you have received a phone call, okay, you have received the phone call that, okay, such and such house, Paul Revere's house, is getting raided. What do? Well, you get somebody out there who should be in the car and have a pager, a CB radio, a ham radio, or whatever. If you don't have a CB or ham radio, again, why did you buy that gun? To defend your home, fine. But if you're going to be part of a unit out there, you better have a way to communicate. You haven't got one yet, I suggest you do that. The person who is in the area has to be able to describe what is going on. He's going to be your on-site verification that, hey, there's guns being drawn here, they use flashbang grenades, they're in his house now, they're rummaging through files, whatever. They're rummaging through his house looking for firearms. Keep this in mind. If they're just looking for you, they're going to be in the house and dragging you out in no time flat. But if they want to go through your files, if they want to make a clear search for guns, or if they want to find some secret place where they can drop some drugs down there so they can bust you for that too, they're going to be there a while. At least a half an hour. While they're there, they really don't want anybody else around. Now, did you guys know this stuff before? Well, a lot of you guys don't live in the inner city where this stuff has been going on for years. Okay. Now it's a learning experience, isn't it? Okay. So your guy in the vehicle calls up and says, hey, it's real. Now, you've already called the sheriff, the local police, who's ever involved. What's going on here? Where's the warrant? What's going on? It might be legitimate. Yes, I'll say this publicly. You may have some patriots in your militia units who might be felons who shouldn't be in your militia unit, and you just found out about it when they suddenly got to his house. Okay, if they get to the house and they get control of the situation and they have the suspect under wraps in his home, they may ask him to begin answering some questions. You will answer these questions. No, I'm macho. I'm strong-willed. I've been trained in this in the military. I know what they're going to ask me, and I'm not telling them nothing. Because whatever it is, I know my constitutional rights. I know my Fifth Amendment, and it's none of their darn business. You will talk. Trust me. They will make you talk. Don't think so? I put a riot gun up to your 4-year-old's head. You're talking. Don't think they won't do it. Okay? Don't think they might not come in with an IRS officer. Oh, remember those forms you've been filling out wrong all these years? That business that you told nobody about that we suddenly have all this dirt on? Mm-hmm. We'll just walk out of here and let these guys eat you for lunch. You're talking. So, it is highly imperative that your team responds to whatever the situation is. But here is a problem. This may happen in broad daylight. Everybody's at work. Or you may have a unit which is spread out over a few miles. It may take a while for the guys to get home and get together and do whatever they need to do. The Second Amendment squad, as I call them. Okay? In order to be notified, you have to have a pager. How many people in here have pagers? Not enough. Okay? We had a situation now, through our services in Ohio, we offer out pagers. Well, these guys want pagers, but they don't want to put their name on any list. They don't want to give up their social security number, or they don't want to give up any ID to be on anybody's list. And I said, did you fill out a yellow form when you bought those firearms? Yeah. What do you worry about pagers for? You're on a list. Okay. That's what we strive to do. Our motto at E Pluribus Unum, which is the name of our Patriot group, is to arm people with knowledge, and that's what we try to do. But anyway, we suggest you all have them, because once you have them and you tell everybody in your unit that you do have them, and there is an emergency, you will be paged. And I expect you to respond. Whoever pages you with an emergency expects you to respond. I don't want to hear about, I'm busy, I can't do anything right now. We've heard of these things happening. Because when it happens at your house, I'm sure you want to hear them say the same thing. I'm busy right now. I'm sorry, but I'm watching C-SPAN. And they're having a great gun control debate on here right now. And I'm taping this, and I have to monitor it, so I really don't want to leave. Or, he's a patriot, and he's a good militiaman, but I just don't like him. I don't know. He said something that I didn't agree with the other day, and it just, we want everybody to wear their flags upside down, and he refused to do that. I got a real problem with that. Or he refuses to give up his social security number. He isn't a real sovereign. He's just a patriot. He isn't a militiaman. So I really don't think we ought to waste time helping him. That's more arrogance that's going to get some people killed in this movement. And I know it's out there. Anyway, now that you've assumed that there is a situation, and it's going to take some time for you people to get there, for those of you folks who keep talk shows under siege, for those of you who can't seem to get off the phone and shut up, and you just love the fact that you got to call somebody and tell them off, or call somebody and tell them what's going on out there, this is where the FACT team comes into play. What is a FACT team? FACT is F-A-C-T. It stands for First Amendment Chaos and Tactics. Remember, they have to keep control of the situation. Now you know pretty much where the address is of where this target is taking place. Well, look at some of the other addresses in the area. If you have to use the phone to have them lose control of the situation, call the fire department and report a fire over there. If there is, make sure there's a fire actually there in case they catch on to that, okay? You might also want to consider calling the press. Call the airport shuttle service. Order a pizza. Call a cab. Call another cab. Call the plumbing and heating and air conditioning service in an emergency. Whatever it takes, make them lose control of the situation. If you are close to the situation, you might be the one out there on the ground monitoring the situation. Situation's getting ugly. They might start roughing somebody out. They might start dragging that 72-year-old lady out of the house by her feet. Then what do? Well, you ladies, you half-hour women, you ladies who are in the militia, we men have a weakness. We American men seem to have this natural tendency to respond to a blood-curdling scream. It always works. It makes us turn our heads every time. So just to cause a diversion, a blood-curdling scream. Okay? If you have units in your own area, keep a supply of very loud firecrackers on hand. Your opposition is very concerned with which one of you militia guys have modified your semi-automatic weapons to fully automatic. Strings of very loud firecrackers outside work very well. Whatever it takes. Okay? These are the things we want to do. It needs to happen consistently. Call the police if you have to. If you have to call the police, let's say there's a group of you out there, let's say 400 or 500 of you in a given county know what's going on. Everybody isn't going to show up. You might get 10, 20 to show up. What can the rest of you do? Call the rest of the police department everywhere else. I mean, make it a class 3 emergency. If you can get on the street that it's happening on, turn on fire extinguishers, the fire hydrants. Just unplug them, turn them on. Anything. Just to make sure that these guys have to watch over their shoulder. What in the heck is going on out here? That slows them down until help gets on the way. It works. It has been done. We proved it. Now, in order to do that, that's the kind of intelligence you can start gathering. Where do I get these phone numbers from? Use your own imagination here of people you can call to show up at a given point. Let's say it happens 1 block away from you, and your utility services are behind your house. This person's getting assaulted behind your house. Well, suddenly you have a cable problem. They have to show up. Or your electricity just went out. I want a service truck over here now. You want to get a service truck over there now? You want to get an electrical company service truck over there now quickly? Well, I'm in the alley here, and you have a down power line, and some kids are playing right near it. You guys better show up real quick. Whatever it takes. It gets real confusing when bucket trucks and ambulances and other utility vehicles all start showing up where they got the street blocked off. One thing about ordering a pizza, if they have the neighborhood cordoned off, that's one of the easiest ways to get inside that perimeter. I have a pizza here. For who? For the command sergeant on charge. Really? Yes. Believe me, we've gotten on air bases like that. What I'm generally trying to say, people, is that it works. You're Americans. Use your ingenuity. Notice I didn't mention firing 1 round of anything, and it still can be done. Now, am I advocating not using guns? Oh, please, buy more guns, buy more ammo, and make sure you can hit whatever you aim at. And make sure if you have to come in and save my rear end, you don't miss and hit somebody else. If there is a situation that we decided in our area, if there is a situation which requires us to take action, there is a siege taking place, we have these drug dealers in the house, they're locked up. Oh, you're going to be drug dealers, you're going to be terrorists, whatever, you just figure that out. Well, we have these guys here, and they're holding us under siege, and they're making these wild demands, and it's one of us to come in and save you, okay? As far as I'm concerned, the first thing I'm going to do is negotiate for the release of your children, because you didn't take that precaution. Okay, so have somebody you trust out there ready, because the first thing we are going to do before we try to get you out of there is negotiate for the release of your children. We don't want to see those guys toasted too. And besides, if this battle happens to go on another generation, we'll need some patriots out there who have been battle tested. So we're going to get them out of there, then we're going to be concerned with you. Now, I hope I've given people something that they can take home with them. Okay. As far as communications, if you have a telephone tree or a phone communications network, it sucks. Okay? If you are out there in a unit that has been publicized whatsoever, the minute you start making that phone tree out there, the other side knows exactly who's going to show up. And the way half of you folks are acting, they can pretty much estimate where you're going to be. Pagers. Use pagers. Use ham radios. When you use pagers, don't use the phone number and thinking, well, they're not monitoring that. Yeah, they can monitor that pretty easy now. They advertise it in the magazine for a mere $6,000. You can buy one. Use codes. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because, again, they're not going to attack you as a group. It is going to be individual. Part of the problem of militia units is we live by impatience. We live on the seat of our pants. Some of us actually want it to happen yesterday. I know you do. You can taste it. You can't wait to just start kicking these boys back into the Atlantic Ocean. I understand that. Understand this. The other side has 20 years to wait on you. They can print all the money they want. They can wait you out. They can go grab you, and then you, and then you, and then you, and then you, and shut up the rest of you. These are the kind of things we're going to do. Now, of course, that's only defensive actions. Now you want offensive actions you can take, right? All right. You do want offensive actions, right? What are you guys like? Oh no, he's going to talk about warfare, and he's going to get us all thrown in jail. He's going to get us killed. You want to kick butt or what? Yeah. Thank you. Whew. I knew I was in Michigan. right? All right. In order to beat these guys, you got to cut off the purse strings. Okay? We're going to cut off their purse strings. Let me give you a little hint now. The last thing, 2 weeks ago, I talked about this. I'm telling you again. Something about the Internal Revenue Service. They have the highest turnover rate of any government agency. So what do? You make sure that they maintain that high turnover rate. Now, unlike the post office, they aren't heavily armed and like to shoot each other, which is the ideal thing we'd like to see happen. If any patriots in here work for the post office, by the way, please see me out there at the e-pluribus table out there. I'd like to know your tactical operations strategy, because I would like to take this concept and put it on a couple of other government agencies. Anyway, one of the reasons they have the highest turnover rate was because when they answer the phones, they deal with these totally irate customers. They have a huge bureaucracy, and a lot of them know that they're just basically stealing the money. So after a while, the stress just gets to you and you just quit. So what you do is you help them quit. Okay? Your mission is to drive these folks stark, raving mad. So you can put in your Patriot newsletters that there is this cult group down at the IRS building known as federal employees, and they have this apocalyptic vision that the citizens are just going to overrun their building one day and take all of them hostage. In order to do these things, you have to get creative. Every now and then, take a day off work, wherever the IRS processing center is here, go down and visit some people. Well, don't actually visit them. Kind of take a video camera with you, and when they're going in and out of work, kind of just video it. Make sure you're not on the property. We don't want to break the law. But if your camera happens to go over into the parking lot where the cars are parking and grab license plate numbers, that's fine too. Ingenuity. Think about it, folks. What are we going to do? We're going to treat them with the exact kind of respect they treat us with. None. When we call them, you give them that much respect. Thank you. One of the things I love doing with the IRS, whenever I have a problem and I call them up and they say, "Can I have your social security number, please?" And I go, "I forgot it." "You forgot it?" "Yeah, I forgot. I'll give you my name and my address, but I forgot my social security number." "Well, I can't process you without one." "Okay, fine, click." Other things you can do when you have to mail in your taxes. Now remember, these folks don't want to read half of these forms. They want to get it off of their desk as soon as possible. They want to look at it, see whether it's a refund or how much you owe, and they want to send it right out of there. They hate to read forms. Make them read the forms. How do you make them read the forms? Well, put in your answers upside down. Let's say for instance you owe them about $400. Make sure with the new math that you have out in the public education system, kind of show them that they owe you about $64,000, and then pay the $400. Just make sure they have to read every line. And as far as make sure you pay the right amount, okay? But if you have deductions, anything, in my opinion, is a deduction, okay? My Constitution is a deduction. What the heck? U.S. Constitution, Social Security number doesn't have one. Just put down deductions, how much earned income tax credits, whatever. Just make it totally screwball. Write them in crayon. If you really want to get elaborate, every time you send a letter to the IRS, send it certified mail. Somebody has to sign for it. Drive these folks nuts. If you have a $1,000 payment you got to make, how many checks can you write? Make it add up to $1,000 little by little. It is illegal, by the way. It is illegal for those of you who are thinking about this. It is illegal to send them pennies. Nickels, dimes, and quarters is what you want to send them if you can. Okay? You know, you got those like $10 roll quarters? Like, make sure it's like $9.75 worth in one and $10.25 worth in another. I mean, make them have to open up every one of them and count them. Other things you can do is call up your regional Federal Reserve office and just ask them, what in the heck do you guys do there? I've often wondered that. What do you guys do? We know the government's broke. What do you do? Juggle numbers? Just call them and ask them. Make sure you are polite and courteous, as we always ask you to be. These are just some of the things that you can do with your wonderful infernal revenue service. Now, I hope I've given you some insight on what we're about in Ohio. I know a lot of you are also asking, and I'm going to finish up with this, but how did that Donahue show go? Well, it was very interesting. Let me tell you a little bit about it, how it first got all evolved. Well, they wanted to talk to some militia people, and I believe it was Linda Thompson in Indianapolis, which pointed them at other places, and they went searching around for other places, and they found the guys in Montana, and they found the guys in northern Michigan, and they found a guy in Florida, and they says, "Do you have anybody else?" We kind of wanted several people from several states. Well, yeah, get that Johnson kid in Ohio. We know him out there. And so they did, and they were going to have the opposition on. The opposition was going to be from the Anti-Defamation League, the Handgun Control Incorporated, under whatever pseudonym they call themselves, and the Southern Poverty Law Center. And they had their guests set up. Well, Florida dropped out. They weren't going to be in it. And when the gentleman from the Southern Poverty Law Center heard that a gentleman named James Johnson was going to be on there, he backed out. He did not ask anything else. He says, "We're going to have a guy from Ohio." He says, "Is his name Johnson?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "I'm out of it right now." I always say that in case you're here, Southern Poverty Law Center. I'm still waiting for that open and public debate that you still owe me from last year, because we're all Klan members. We're all Aryan Nations people. We're all white supremacists, and this is the ultimate in camouflage, people. Okay, there are more people as part of this movement than you know. A lot of them don't show up here because they're busy. A lot of them you can't convince us because they work for the government. They know it's wrong. If you talk to them on their terms, rather than sneaking and peeking and getting information, you'll get it in the form of an interoffice memo because they work there. Okay? Just be faithful. They're out there. And once the bullet starts flying over everybody's heads, everybody's going to be on the same page anyway. Let me move on. Now, we finally got there. I took a plane to get there, and it was a real rough ride because we had to go through a storm. And for those of you who haven't been to New York, those cab drivers in New York can break your fear of flying real quick. Anyway, we got to the hotel, and we had a pretty good time. I got to meet these guys, and they were all, "Oh, it's so nice to see you." And, "Do you know anything about this movement?" I said, "Yeah, a little bit." But we worked on strategy of what we were going to say and what we were not going to say, and trying to watch our P's and Q's. And I'm pretty much saying, I'm going to tell him whatever I feel like saying. I don't care what he thinks. Okay, I've been on talk shows before. I've talked to the press a lot. I've talked to newspapers, radios, television programs. So I was kind of used to this, and I was kind of nervous because of the format of how we were brutally attacked the minute we got out there. It took me about 5 minutes to realize that this was nothing more than a talk show. I also noticed the fact that everybody that was asking the questions were the ones that were leading the applause. I also noticed that those who wanted to ask questions the most were never called upon. So what we strive to do, what I suggested we do, is not try to convince Phil Donahue of anything, not try to convince the audience of anything, but take our case right to the American people. Now, when we were done and they were finished ridiculing us about our uniforms and everything else, when it was over, after about 2 minutes of us being in the studio, they had to call security in to clear out the crowd because everybody had gathered around us wanting information, which we ran out of. As a matter of fact, we got into the studio. Oh, by the way, the opposition was supposed to meet us in the studio to pass notes afterwards and decided not to do that. We had a gentleman come over from the NBC newsroom studio and wanted to know was there a group going on in Connecticut. So apparently we won somebody over. We also these things, when you're in the Phil Donahue's waiting room, we have all these wonderful pictures of all these guests that Phil Donahue had, okay? And after the show was over, and I kind of leaned over and Phil says, you know, well, you guys, I told you the show goes kind of fast, and it was nice having you out there. I said, hey, Philip, we're going to get our picture up there? It was a very interesting event. There are people out there who are still looking for a group in their area, and you'll be surprised. But what they thought was going to backfire, so they can label them all whatever they can label you, what they thought was going to happen, it backfired on them, okay? That show in itself helped build this movement more than it could ever do, more than they can ever hurt it. That's something to be proud of. Now, when I went there, I don't know half of the people in here, but I thought of all of you when I was on stage. I thought of all of you when they were putting on that makeup. They had to put on my makeup twice. They only had one kind available. But I thought of everybody that were up there, and I knew that if we blow this, it can put a death nail in the whole movement. Something else I want to say, speaking of the whole movement. If you are a patriot, a free man, a sovereign, a militiaman in this movement, understand something. I don't care what end of the totem pole you're on, you are a representative of this movement. Please act accordingly. Okay? You have to win over the unwashed, the mainstream. Now, the currency dropping to unprecedented rates is a helpful start. Start there. With a lot of women, it helps to grab educational issues. A lot of women are very concerned about the school systems. Okay? Now, as for how to get black folks in there, well, the stuff that you folks talk about doesn't really impress me. I mean, it's been going on in my neighborhood for years. You need to tell me something I don't know. Tell them their population's targeted for extermination or incarceration. They don't believe it? Have them call me, I'll tell them. Everything you're talking about is going on in our neighborhoods right now. Join forces with them. If you have to get together and march and go door to door, take it right to that meanest, roughest, toughest neighborhood in town. Oh, gee, I would never go in there. Gee, a person could get shot. Oh, gee, we can get mugged. We can get raped. And you're going to take on the U.S. government? So when you get in there and talk to these folks, be ready to listen to the problems that are going on. Tell them how we are all in this together. A house divided amongst itself cannot stand. Period. Okay? O.J. Simpson is not president. Santa Claus uses a Visa card. And your money isn't real. Tell people these things. Tell it to the unwashed people. We need more eyes out there. We need more ears out there. Okay, now have I helped you folks with anything today? Now I was told to open it up for a few questions. Now I know a lot of people get real nervous about asking questions, so here's what I'll do. I want somebody to ask me the dumbest question in here. I want the dumbest question first. Do you know what makes the most sense? So, who's got the dumb question first? Nobody? I'll take the smart one first. Yeah. What? Okay. I understand. Okay. Okay, hold on. Let me answer your question there. First of all, Field Manual 33-1 talks about psychological operations. I think there's a lot of that going on out here myself. Now, as far as tanks, there are various news articles, Patriot newsletters going out there that have photographs and tell you right where you'll find them. A lot of the ways that we find things, we get in the car and drive right to them. They're there. Okay? In our newsletters and in our other publications, we talk about how to assess whether the information is either valid or credible. That's what people need to educate themselves on what to do.
So you had no background in
that? In background in what?
With those pictures and that writing?
No, I did not have the pictures.
I wanted to put that down and get that said because people out in my area are all going in the background that all of this is happening and it's a lot of things. And I keep telling everybody, it's crazy. You're giving yourself and for no purpose at this moment.
Okay, next question. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That was reported on national news, yeah. Certain parts are under curfew under martial law, and they are known to go hopping and popping and kicking indoors. Mm-hmm. Miami-Dade County areas. And what you need to do, instead of getting totally concerned about this, is to learn from what's going on, try to get the best information you can, try the Miami Herald, usually helps, and learn from that and employ it here. Next question, I got to cut this short soon. Yeah. Thank you. You're right. He wanted to know, how do I know this information going out here nowadays isn't a bunch of BS? I answered it. This gentleman wanted to know about martial law activities going on in Florida. They're both right. Next question. Yes, you're right there. I'm going to ask everybody in here a question. Has the mainstream media to this day printed one word truthful about the militia? What makes you think they're going to start tomorrow? Okay? If they, and I have little plans for the media too, if they don't want to report the truth and insist on character assassinating everybody, wait till you find out when we started character assassinating some of their butts. Because you know what those scanners that we can hear cellular phone calls going on? Sometimes we go over to these studios, news studios, and pick up some of these cellular phone calls. Wait till you see some of the stuff we're going to start printing about. Yeah, last question. I got to get off the stage. Yes. What, riots in your community? Shoot them. It's simple. You know, if they come into your neighborhood, stop them right there. I suggest using whatever thing you got in your hand at the time. Remember, the militia is to repel invasions and put down insurrections and rebellion. It's in the Constitution. So I don't have a problem with that at all. Help out your National Guard. I'd love to talk more, folks, but I got to get out of here. Time's running short. But I'll be out there. We have a table with all kind of wonderful literature and everything. Hope you can support us and have a great meeting.
J.J. Johnson.